Night time-lapse, can't speak English. Now, to talk about this, there's so much we can go into. I'm just gonna strictly cover the basics, the very, very basics. When you're doing night time-lapse photography, most cameras can't take pictures on their own over a long period of time. They can do it in a couple bursts on their own, but usually they can't go for a couple hours. You need an actual remote or a device you hook to the camera to actually make that happen. Now, we're doing our night time-lapse photography on DSLR cameras, specifically a Canon 1DC, Canon 5D, Mark III, and a 5DSR. So that's what we're using for our night time-lapse photography, but any camera out there that's a DSLR, to my knowledge, can do this. Most cameras though, they're gonna need an actual device though to control the camera to tell it to take pictures over a long period of time. Some of the newer cameras, they have that function built into them, but even some of the high-end ones, they don't even have that option. So when we were filming just recently at Easter Island, I knew we were going to be at all these amazing Moai statues, or Moai statues depending on who you're talking to, but I knew we were going to have these ancient statues that we were going to be filming, and I was like, I have to do night time-lapse photography because there's so much mystery behind these gigantic rocks that adding the stars to it is just going to add a completely new layer to it. So with that being said, I brought one night time-lapse rig, and you can actually buy these at a lot of different stores online, maybe even stores by your house, but definitely online. I bought mine personally from Amazon. Now, they have the Canon brand, but the Canon brand's significantly more expensive. So I buy like a third-party brand. Personally, I'll have a link below in the description to the one that I actually used for our videos. Just make sure it works for your camera, but they do cover a lot of cameras. If you buy one night time-lapse rig, it usually will work for 30, 40 different cameras a lot of the time. So whenever you're doing night time-lapse photography, you're gonna have to use a tripod. There's no other way around it. So make sure to buy a good tripod. The tripod that I use is a fairly expensive one. I spent around $2,000 to $3,000 on that. It's also for cinema cameras as well, but it's a heavy duty one. Now the problem I see with a lot of people buying actual tripods that do night time-lapse photography, if it's windy at all and it's shaking the camera, you're gonna have a blurry image. So that's why it's important to have a heavy duty camera or have a tripod that's not gonna move at all if it's gonna be a windy day. So just be mindful of that. Fight the wind and set the camera in a position that it's not going to be moving. Don't sit on like a water plank that's constantly going up and down. So just be mindful of that. Trick of the trade. Once I get to the location, I know I'm going to be doing this night time-lapse photography. I will get there, set up my tripod, set up the shot, and generally speaking, you're going to want to use a lens that can shoot at a fairly open f-stop, such as a 2.8, f1.4. For these pictures you're about to see right now, I shot these on a Canon 24mm lens at a f1.8 f-stop, so that's wide open, so it lets in a lot of light. And my shutter was 30 seconds. So for those that don't know what shutter is, that's when the mirror on your camera opens up and lets light hit the actual sensor. So that opens for 30 seconds, letting light in, and that's leaving that imprint on the sensor that makes your digital image. If you want to know more about shutter, click right here. So going back to that, when you're taking pictures of the stars, you need as much light as possible going into your sensor. So that's why you have to shoot at a super slow shutter. For 95% of the night time-lapse photography I've done, I'm almost always shooting at a 30-second shutter speed. Going to Easter Island, I wanted these time lapses to look a little different than what I've done in the past. And I knew I was gonna have these amazing statues, and I thought it'd be really cool to actually light them up. So my friends at LumeCube, which is this product right here, they actually sent me out one of these, and I was like, okay, this is a cool product, let me actually try this out on the shoot. Just for the record, I am not paid to say any of this. I hate how I have to always say that, but if I don't, everyone's saying, well, you're just saying that because it's sponsored. It's not true. I'm saying this because this like changed my night time-lapse photography big time. So this right here is a tool that I use to actually light up the statues, and Personally, I think this made them look so much better than them just being completely black silhouette. Now those are also a cool style, but this gave me actual detail on the textures. Now the way this light works is you can charge it by USB, and that's exactly what I did. It stays on screws, and this is actually waterproof, so you can take it underwater. I'm not sure how deep, but you can actually charge this with your computer, and then it lasts for about an hour plus. Now if you plug this in, which is what I did, to an actual device, you can have this going all night. So it has two buttons, boom boom, and just by pushing one of them, that was the wrong button. Just by pushing one of the, okay, now I have it on. So just by pushing one of the buttons, the actual light turns on. Now this isn't that bright right now to light up these gigantic statues because I didn't want this light to be in the shot. But each time you push the button on the side, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and hey, guess what? It gets even brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And then once it's done with being bright, it turns itself off. So I was doing this about half maximum brightness to light up these gigantic statues. And what I did, the first couple days it wasn't windy at all, so I literally just set this on my camera bag slightly to the side of the statue. So if the statues were right here, the light would be slightly in front at an angle. So this is what I was using to light up all the statues. So this, to me, I love. This is a cool tool. So if you want to know more about the Lume Cube, check out the link below in the description. From now on, I'm going to be using this product in all my time-lapse photography because I feel it adds so much to the picture. It makes it so much better than it just being a black silhouette. When you're actually taking a picture or doing night time-lapse photography on a subject, and you have the stars behind it, it's very hard to pull focus on the actual subjects. So let me show you an example right now. Pretend it's pitch blackness. Now watch this. It's pitch blackness. So pretend it's pitch blackness. Now you have to pull focus to me. The stars are behind me, but you can't see that through the viewfinder. So I was using the Lume Cube. See that right there? I would literally turn this on full blast, and it depends on your shutter, so I'm not even sure if this is going to be exposed, but you're going to tell this is far better than it being pitch blackness. So I would take this light, stick it right next to the moist statues, just like this, and then I would pull focus on my camera. I'd actually set it to auto, hold the button halfway down, have the camera pull focus, so then I knew it was in focus. So then, let there be light. So after using the cube to light up the actual statue so I could actually see what was in focus and what wasn't in focus, I would then take a picture to make sure it was in focus, and then I would know it actually worked. This right here was a life changer for making sure my subject was in focus. It was pitch blackness out there. I would use this tool to light up the actual statue, then I would put the light off the statue, and I'd take a reference picture to make sure and it was in focus every time I did that. When it was pitch blackness without using this cube, I had to kind of guess with focus and I wasn't getting even close. And you can't autofocus when it's pitch blackness as well. So this was the actual device I was using to pull focus on my subject. Now, yeah, there you have it. Now if you don't want to spend the money on this, there's a lot of other tools out there. You can use a flashlight, which from my experience, there's pros and cons to using a flashlight. A lot of times they have a super directional spotlight, so it way blows out the thing that you're trying to take a picture of. This, you actually have several different settings as far as brightness, and it's not a directly spotlight, so you don't completely blow out the subject. It kind of casts it evenly around the subject. And the cool thing too is they actually sent me a little adapter so I can actually hook this onto the camera, so if I'm out on the field doing interviews, filming videos, I wouldn't use it for like a massive production as far as trying to light everything, but this is an awesome tool to light your subject if you are doing quick interviews and you want to get the shot. This will definitely light that up. So going back to night time-lapse photography, I'd be there for about 2 to 3 hours. Now with the actual time-lapse rig that I was just talking about, with that actual rig itself, I can tell it to take pictures as often as I want or as slow as I want. So when I'm doing that, I'll set next to my tripod and have it going for 3 hours. That can be super exhausting, and it's always a little scary because it's like film. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. So it can be scary. Now, when you're also doing night time-lapse photography, you're gonna wanna have all your settings on your camera on manual. So ISO, shutter, color temperature, you're gonna wanna have all those manually set. And if you're not sure what's gonna look the best, depending on what lights are out there, what lights are not out there, I would just do trial and error and take a couple pictures with the slow shutter and see what's looking good and what's not looking good. And if you're shooting in RAW, you can always change that color temperature later, but I would first just get a general idea of how that's gonna look in camera with what you think is gonna be the right color temperature when you're actually taking these pictures. So that is a quick tutorial video on night time-lapse photography. There's so much more we can get into. I love time-lapse photography, so we're gonna get into it in depth, and I'm actually gonna bring on several special guests very soon that are pros on this subject, and they're gonna go in much greater detail, sharing everything they've learned on this subject. But we've traveled all around the world doing time-lapse photography. We haven't done a ton of night time-lapse photography, but from this trip especially, I wanted to add to the mystery of it all, and I thought nighttime did that. So that's why I focused on that specifically for this trip. So all the time lapses that I actually caught in Easter Island, I had all these different cameras, but the camera I was using was the Canon 1DC and the Canon 5D Mark III to do the actual night time lapse photography because they had really good ISO as well. So that is a tutorial on night time-lapse photography. It also covered the Lume Cube with my experiences with that. Once again, this wasn't sponsored, so if you want to say hate comments, say them somewhere else. But if you want to leave good comments, leave them down below. And any questions you want us to cover, like I said, we're going to have an expert in the field talking specifically about time-lapse photography. I want to make sure we answer all your questions. So leave them down below in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Over and out. Yeah, wham, bam, super tramp. And I tipping up my hat while I boost the fans. And I hover up top, can you feel the noise? All the girls scream now cause they want the boys. Yo, making all the clouds looking like a big joke. When I run so fast and I sing so low. And you never wanna mess with me, you're just testing me. I just set me free, so just stop. We cool, we hot, we freshin'.